If you want to see an example of evolutionist backpedaling, look no further than Rudolfensis. When first discovered, it was dated at 3 million years old. But wait, that would make it as old as Australopithecus afarensis, which would mean that the famous Lucy was not our ancestor after all. In order to save their narrative, they just decided it had to be less than 1.9 million years old. At first, they made reconstructions with a flatter face. Once again, they decided to change their reconstructions with a protruding lower facial area, looking more ape-like when they learned that it lived at the same time as the supposed Homo habilis. They changed the details so many times it's hard to keep up. Why can't these alleged scientists keep their story straight? I had to investigate. By 1972, the fossil record had already yielded a reasonably complete sequence of fossil skulls, forming a gradient of species, including those spanning Australopithecus africanus at 3.3 to 2.1 million years ago, Homo habilis at 2.1 to 1.5 million years ago, Homo erectus at 1.9 to half a million years ago, Homo heidelbergensis at 800 to 120,000 years ago, and the modern Homo sapiens at 200,000 years ago to present. That year, 2 years before the discovery of the well-known Lucy find, Bernard and Gleadow, as a member of a team led by Richard and Leakey, discovered a nearly complete skull and set in motion a scientific debate that is still developing today. Categorized as KNM ER 1470, the Leakeys described it the following year in the journal Nature. 5 years later, Valery Alexeyev classified it as Pithecanthropus rudolfensis, naming it after Lake Rudolph, now known as Lake Turkana. Initially, it was tentatively dated to 2.6 million years by the strata of the Cooke Formation it was discovered in. Known as the KBS tuff, it is a volcanic ash layer that persists throughout the eastern African Rift Valley. This, however, coincided with a debate amongst academics regarding the dating of the tuff. The KBS tuff was named for K. Berensmeyer, who discovered stone tools in the Cooke in 1969. Soon after, Frank Fitch at Birkbeck College in London and Jack Miller at the University of Cambridge, using argon-argon dating, determined that the KBS eruption occurred roughly 2.61 million years ago, plus or minus 260,000 years. In 1972, Vincent Maglio also determined the date of the tuff to be roughly 2.6 million years by using potassium-argon dating. In 1974, Andrew Brock from the University of Nairobi used paleomagnetism and also dated the tuff to 2.61 million years ago, plus or minus 260,000 years. In 1976, Anthony Herford had performed fission track dating on pumice and other deposits in the area and determined an age on the lower end of the initial dating at about 2.4 million years old. He did, however, acknowledge contradictory dates from other researchers. In 1972, a few months before Maglio's findings, Basil Cooke had published a paper on pig evolution showing that pig teeth from 2 million years ago in Omo, a geographically adjacent area, were identical in morphology to those observed from the KBS tuff at 2.6 million years. This biopaleochronology implied that the tuff could be more than 600,000 years younger than the initial dates. This was compounded by multiple conflicting dates ranging up to 220 million years. In 1978 and 1979, Garniss Curtis and his student Thor Curling both published papers utilizing argon-argon dating, potassium-argon dating, and other trace element analyses. Their results showed that the KBS tuff is actually two separate tuffs at 1.8 and 1.6 million years respectively. This demonstrated a finally consistent correlation to the paleogeography between the Cobifora and Omo formations, with a layer of wash consisting of more ancient material from the walls of the Rift Valley in between each tuff. These dates were confirmed in 1980 through potassium-argon dating by Ian McDougall, and in 1985 through fission track dating by Andrew Gleadow. Being just below the KBS tuff, KNM ER 1470 was then dated to roughly 1.9 million years. Richard and Meave Leakey, Michael Day, and Alan Walker initially assembled a rough reconstruction of the skull for the lay press. It featured a distinctively flat face and a cranial capacity of 752 cubic centimeters, but it brought up more questions. Historically, many species have been combined as more and more knowledge increases about their morphology. The name Pithecanthropus, initially applied to Erectus and Rudolfensis, was jettisoned along with Sinanthropus, Eleganthropus, and Atlanthropus, combining all of their associated finds, including Rudolfensis, into the genus Homo. Were habilis and Rudolfensis different enough to warrant two different species? If there were more than one species of early Homo at the time, which one was our ancestor? In 2007, Timothy Bromage from the New York University College of Dentistry decided to make a new reconstruction of the skull based on dentition. Utilizing the dentition from two habilis specimens, K&M-ER 1590 and 806A, Bromage reconstructed the dentition to show that the lower jaw protruded further, similarly to habilis with a similar small but slightly larger cranial capacity of 526 cubic centimeters. This has led to the conclusion that both are, in fact, the same species with differing characteristics being due to sexual dimorphism, or what we call secondary sex characteristics. In 2012, however, a team led by Leakey discovered 3 more fossil skulls from the Cooke Formation, 2 jawbones including teeth, and a face from the eye sockets down. Comparisons to the habilis specimens showed that the jaws could not have jutted outward, nor could the cranial capacity have been any smaller than 700 cubic centimeters. This degree of sexual dimorphism has never been seen in humans nor any other apes. So the questions are still unanswered. We do not have a scientific consensus either way as to whether Rudolfensis is a separate species from habilis. We also have no idea which, if either of them, is a human ancestor, or if some unknown third species has that distinction. Over the past decade, there is also a growing consensus as to whether or not all species of the genus Homo should actually be combined into one. Compounding that, there's also a growing consensus that habilis should be removed from the genus Homo and placed in the genus Australopithecus. And if so, is Rudolfensis modern enough to remain in its current classification? In episode 26, I pointed out that creationists A.W. Mellert, Marvin Lubenow, and Duane Gish couldn't decide amongst themselves whether or not Erectus was a man or an ape. It appears that the same holds true for habilis and Rudolfensis. Casey Luskett and Peter Line from Creation Ministries International pronounced them apes in 2007, while Todd Wood pronounced them humans in 2010. So the jury is out even amongst creationists. This is the painful process by which science evolves. It involves bitter rivalries, hurt feelings, and the satisfaction of presenting what would seem to be an unassailable argument. The peer review process proceeds long after findings are published and in fact never does truly end. Whether or not Rudolfensis is an Australopithecine or a member of the genus Homo, and whether or not all members of the genus Homo should be classified under the species Sapiens, it is still another example of how creationism taught me real science. If there's a creationist argument you think I should investigate, please comment below. It may become the basis for a future episode. In the meantime, subscribe and make sure you don't miss it.